In today's show, we're going to talk about the Power App's date and time functions. And so last time I did this, I kind of concentrated on the actual functions. So this time what we're going to do is we're going to concentrate on using math with those functions. So we're going to do some cool calculations between dates and times, do some rounding, do some different types of, working with that data now that you have it. Should be fun. Should be fast. But first, here's our intro. Hi, my name is Shane Young with Power Apps 911. Those guys. And today, we're going to do some date and time function math in Power Apps. Why? Because these are all the questions you guys love to ask me about. And so what we're going to do is we're going to look at things like finding the number of days and weeks between two dates. We're also going to do some different calculations, take a bunch of drop downs, turn those into a time value, right? So that way someone can enter a time, and then do the calculations of the time, which is pretty simple. But then we're also going to look at how to break that down into hours and minutes, a little bit harder. And then finally, we're going to look at how to actually do hours and minutes and then even round that out. So in some payroll situations, right, if you work 0 to 7 minutes, then you round down. If you work 8 to 15, then you round up, right? You do payroll in like quarter or 15-minute quarter hours. And so we're going to talk about how to do that math also. If you're not going to use it, it's just a fun mental exercise of how all the math works. So I'm pretty excited to show you. Let's switch over to my desktop and take a look. Here's the app I built, and we'll just kind of quickly demo it, and then we're going to build all this back together ourselves, right? But the idea here is I want to show you some of the fun. So for example, calculating the number of weeks and days, this is going to use the mod function. And I did a little fun with here, like if you choose a date in the past, it yells at you, yay. But if we choose one in the future, let's go further out than that. Then what will happen is like, hey, 4 weeks and 4 days. And so we're going to use the mod function to take the DateDiff and do some math there. We'll also do some width there to, kind of cut down the number of repetitive transactions. We also wanted to be able to choose whether or not the day is a weekday, right? So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And so for Liam, we did that. So we used the weekday function to show that. And then Joel had a great idea. He's like, hey, you should also show them how to do the start of the week. So a lot of times, like especially payroll situations, you have to grab. So if I give you a Thursday date, right? In this case here, let's see, we'll give you Thursday date, right? It's the 28th. I want this 24th. So that way, like that week view that starts on Sunday, I can show that to them. So to calculate that, you can see here that we went ahead and calculated that as well. So we'll talk about that. So that's the kind of the fun we'll have on the date side. Work through some of those things. This function right here, this is like one of my favorite demos from one of my training classes that I've been doing for years. That I thought, let's throw it in a video. I really love that demo. So we're going to do that one. Then over here, we're going to do calculating time for payroll. And so you can see that I made it so you can, choose when did you start. Well, I started at 8:37 this morning. And so I made these drop downs. You could make these text inputs. It wouldn't matter, AM or PM. But what's fun here is that we're going to take these inputs and convert them to a time value, which comes up a lot for people. So we'll use a function to do that. And then once we've got both these time values, we'll calculate, oh, look, there's 8 hours and 59 minutes in between these two. And then you can see that, oh, I screwed up here and I actually got this wrong. So we'll fix this when we do it. But what this should change here, we'll change this to do a smaller period. There you go. So this is calculating those payroll increments of, is it, a quarter hour, a half an hour, 3/4 an hour, or a full hour. And you can see that when it was a full hour, I messed up. Oopsie. All right, cool. So that's what I got here. So let's build this together. Okay, so the first thing we probably should do is just jump over and do this on a new screen, right? Let's go over here to a new screen. And so we're going to insert a couple of date pickers. So input and then a date picker. There's one. Input and date picker. There's two. So date picker 3 and 4 are our friends this time. And what we're going to do here, we'll throw a label over here. And so for this one, what we're going to do is we're going to start with the simple, right? The DateDiff. So we're going to say, hey, DateDiff between start date. And so what's start date? Well, it's date picker 3. So date picker 3 dot selected date right there. And then what's the end date is date picker 4 dot selected date. Oh, not a comma, Shane. There we go. And so if we do that, that is going to spit out 0, obviously, because they're the same. And so we'll make the 17th and the 22nd. And so then that gives you the 5-day difference between the two. And so by default, DateDiff spits out in days. You can change that over here. So you can have days, hours, milliseconds, months, quarters, seconds, years. You can't do weeks though. I always want to do weeks for some reason. So we're going to do weeks. So to do weeks, what we're going to have to do is use a function called mod. And the way the mod works is it takes a number, like the difference between these two, divides it by a number, and then it gives you the remainder. So all it's really doing is giving the remainder. So for example, if we take, let's just throw another label on here for a second. So if we say, hey, I want to mod 10, so we're going to divide 10 by 7, then that's going to give us a remainder of 3, right? So that's how we would figure out, the number of total weeks and partial weeks, because we know that 7 evenly goes into 10 one time, and then it has a remainder of 3. Right? If we change this to mod 39, then the output is still just 4. This is only going to give you the remainder. So it's going to divide 7. 7 goes into there 35 times, or 5 times, which gives you 35. And so that remainder is 4. So that's what mod does, is spits out the remainder. So when you know that, what we can do here, so up here we know this gives us a number of dates. So let's make it so it's 10, since we saw how that one works, right? So that would be the 27th. Okay, so that gives us the number of days. That gives us that 10 days, but we don't want the 10 days. We want 1 week and 3 days in this case. So what I would probably do here is I could throw the mod function out in front of this and say, hey, mod that in 7, that gives us the 3 days. That's the remainder days. So that's half of it. All right, let's just add a little text out here, 3 days. So in front of that, then, what we're going to need to do is we're going to have to do the math to divide by the full weeks, but we only want to divide those whole numbers. So the way that I tend to do this is I will go here and I'm going to say, all right, I want to take the DateDiff. So all of this, right, this is what gives us the 10. So let's just copy this for a second, Control C. So grab that. And then I want to subtract from that the whole mod thing, the piece that sticks out the 3. Remember, this equates to 3. So this is going to be 10 minus 3, which will always be, so this would always be an even number. So if I throw some parentheses around this, remember math class, take that even number and divide that by 7. And then just throw a little text in here. So that'd be and weeks. And boom, something like that. I think we got it, folks. Let's pull this down here where it's easier to see. So 1 week and 3 days. Oh, I'd probably change this to be week like so. 1 week and 3 days. And now we can test it because, once we write a formula like that, we want to make sure that it does what we want. So let's just go out here. I don't even know what this will be. Oh, it's 5 weeks and 3 days. That seems reasonable. I believe that. So the idea here is that, right, let's do it again. So this is the difference between the two. In our case, 38, right? So 38 minus, this is the remainder if you divide that number by 7 using the mod function, 3. So 38 minus 3 is 5. It's 35. So then we're saying take that 35, that's all this equates 35, and then divide it by 7, which gives us the 5 weeks. So we have 5 full weeks, and then the mod again, which spits out the 3 remainder days. So that's how we get to that math. That's how we divide this out, right? Hopefully, if you're a math nerd, you're like, oh, that's awesome, I love it. If you're not a math nerd, you're like, oh, I'm not sure what just happened. That's fair. It might take a couple tries. The good news is formula works, so you can just steal the formula. And remember, if you're a member over on the curated library over at training.powerapps911.com, you can just download this working app with a working code and not have to think about it at all. But now what I want to do, now we've done this, I want to make this better because it really bothers me that we do this DateDiff formula 3 times. So what we're going to do is we're going to use our with function, which we've talked about in the past, but if you haven't seen it before, the idea is this lets us create a variable that is only valid for this run, right? For just this label, it makes this a temporary variable. But the idea is we can do this math one time and then reuse it. So maybe we'll just call this days between. So we're just making up think of it as a variable, making up a variable called days between, and we're just going to say, hey, I just want you to take this DateDiff formula and store it. So now All right, we close our curly, we do a comma. So now in here, instead of everywhere we had this DateDiff, we can just use date between. So I'm gonna copy that. I'm gonna be like, all right, you go here, and then you go here, and then you go here. And this is what's so great about, what are you mad? Days between days. Did I accidentally close my, oh, I had an extra, I didn't, there we go. Shoo, and we gotta close out our width. Okay, there you go. So same results, but it's a lot easier to read. Because if you just think about this first line as we declared, we said, hey, just look at the two date pickers and give me the number of the days between. In this case, 38. So they were saying 38 minus whatever 38 divided by 7 is, which is going to leave us that mod of 3, right? Or, yeah, so 38 minus 3 gives us 35. 35 divided by 7 gives us the 5 weeks. And then the mod of this is the 3 days. Woo woo. Okay? So that's one of the reasons I like width, because it helps you on the performance side. You know, in this case, the performance difference is probably nanoseconds, but it's still technically more performant, but it also made it a lot easier to read. Because you could even say, you know what, I want to go a step further, because you can nest widths, right? Now we're just showing off. Or not, I mean, I'm not showing off, but you know what I mean. Rather than fun, we could be like days left over. And then we could do, because we do this mod days between 7 twice, right? So let's just grab this, put this up here. And then like that, and like that. And so then now we could replace all of these instances with days left over. And then maybe now it reads even easier for you, because now it's real straightforward, I think, I hope. And then we got to close the second width. But so there you can see we even nested, we had a width and a width, and we had to do them as 2 separate widths because we wanted to use the output of the first one in the second one. But so days between minus days left over divided by 7, and then show days left over. And there you go, simple formula. All right, so hopefully that helps, because I think that's a really complex scenario, but I use mod all the time, and getting comfortable with it in a scenario like this is a lot easier sometimes than the advanced math ways I have to do it. So, okay, so that gives us these two. Now, another question we had, remember this was Liam's question, is Liam's like, hey, I want to know if this is a weekday or not. So it turns out that's really straightforward, because there is a function called weekday. So you can just say weekday and then date picker 3 dot selected date. And so then that is going to return the day of the week starting with Sunday. So 117 is a Sunday, so it's a 1. If we choose a Friday, this should be 6. Woo woo. So that is how you can figure it out. Now, what's neat about weekday though, remember anytime you use a function, if you do a comma here and you see the ellipses, you're like, oh, there's optional things. So what's the optional thing? I could have it start on the different day of the week. So maybe you want to think about things like Mondays, right? Monday is the easier place for you to think about starting the week. So now Monday becomes 1, Sunday becomes 7. That's really actually helpful in a lot of cases, because the question was, is this a weekend or not? And so what I would do here, right, this is spitting it out, but I want to know if, is that less than 6? And so then I would just do like an if and be like, it is a weekday, it is a weekday, it is a weekend. And so then now if we choose, so we're on a Friday, it's a weekday. If we choose Saturday, say, okay, that's a weekend. If we choose Sunday, that's a weekend. If we choose Monday, that's a weekday. So this is a very common type of thing. But the idea here is that I made my math real easy, because I just said, hey, if I use the weekday function, but set it base Monday, so Monday's 1, Friday's 5, Sunday's 7, then I can just do simple little evaluation. If it's less than 6, because 6 is Saturday, 7 is Sunday, then if it's less than 6, it's a weekday. If it's not, it's a weekend. So there you go, Liam. There is the answer to your question. Very common one that comes up for me. Now, another one that we want to talk about here is, this wasn't Joel's question. Joel knows how to do it, but Joel said, hey, a lot of people learned something from this. So thank you, Joel, for the idea. So Joel said, hey, people want to be able to know that if you give them any day in this week, so if we go in here and let's choose our Wednesday, I really want this Sunday date, right? I want to know what the day of Sunday is, because a lot of times in payroll scenarios, we call that start of week or week start, or sometimes people like to do the opposite. They want to know the Saturday day, what day is the weekend. But whatever your methodology is, you want to be able to find the beginning of the week. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to throw another label on here, and I'm going to say start of week. Oh, start of week. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to do some easy little math. So, and date picker 3.selected date. So that is the actual date they chose. But what I want to do is I want to take that day and I want to do a weekday to figure out what day of the week it is and then back things out from there. So I'm going to say, all right, whatever day you are, so I want to take that date and I want to subtract from it its weekday number. So date picker 3.selected. Oh my goodness, I'm date picker 3. Typing's hard, people. So if I take that, subtract that, that gives us 116. And now if we look though, we know that the 17th is actually the date. And that reason for that is that when we chose this day, it said, hey, I'm the 4th day of the week, but we want to find the 1st day of the week. So we don't want to subtract 4, we actually want to subtract 3. So honestly, the first way that I write this is I just add a 1 there. And so then now you can see that if we choose the 20th, right? The start of the week is the 17th. If I want to choose the 28th, it should be the 24th now. There you go. So that would always give me the Sunday date. And if you wanted to switch that to be the Monday date, because your payroll system's based on there, you could do a +2. Now, the only challenge you're going to have with doing a Sunday date, though, so if we do start of the week is the 25th, if we go up here and then we say, all right, I'm going to choose the 24th, the start of its week should be the 17th, and it actually got that wrong, right? Because we just made Sunday the 7th. So that wouldn't actually work in that scenario. So if you wanted Sunday to be your date, I guess I should have thought about this ahead of time. I didn't think about this ahead of time. What would I do? I would probably change this to be, I think if I want Monday, I think I would just change this to be Monday and then make this a 1. I'm making this up on the fly, people. There you go. So the 24th, so the start of its week, its Monday date would be the 18th. Yeah, look at us. We got it. We got it. Whew. Sometimes I ask myself questions when I'm making these videos. I'm like, ooh, what did I just do? So there you go. So those are, so Joel suggested Liam's question and then a bunch of other fun date stuff. All right. So that's some of the date stuff. The other one here you might have noticed on this screen was if I chose a date in the future, oh wait, let's just do this. If I choose a date that is before the first date, right, you must pick a future date. So the way that I did that, we won't rebuild this, is I just put an if up here and I'm like, hey, if date picker 1 selected date is greater than date picker 2, so then show them this text. And if it's not, then show them all that DateDiff function stuff that we just did. All right. And then what I did is once I added that, I then went to date picker 2 here. You can see its border is red. And I actually just super simple went border color and said, hey, if the date picker of 1 is greater than 2, then make it red. If not, make it whatever the standard gray color was I was using here. So not terribly complex, but you would use that same type of logic, like if you wanted to disable the submit button, if they had chosen dates that, didn't match or something, okay? The other place that'll sometimes come up is like one of my customers, we had a delivery app and, you can only choose a delivery date that was 7 days in the future. And so there's no way with a date picker to tell it that you can't pick a date that is more than 7 days in the future. So what we had to do is we had to just have logic that said, hey, if the date picker date is greater than today plus 7, then, give them an error message, don't let them go forward, that type of stuff. So that's how you have to do that. Now, the good news though, is if you're using Dataverse for Teams, the date picker over there does let you set a max date. So you could set the logic there, so then they couldn't pick a date more than 7 days in the future. Kind of cool on the Dataverse for Teams side. So, all right. So that's the date stuff. So now we want to play with the time pieces. And so what I did here, let's just do another new screen. Give ourselves most room. So the first thing we did is I did a bunch of inputs, right? So I was like, all right, I need a drop down input here. And so then for the items for that, I went right here. And so I just hard coded those. I don't know why I put a 12 at the bottom too. I didn't mean to do that. Oops. So copy that. And so then I just, I made a dynamic table on the fly. Boom. Now people can choose 12 to 11. Okay. So that gave them, the ability to choose the hours of the day. Now, then I threw a label in here just to be cute. Oh my goodness, Control Z. I threw a label in right here and I just put a colon so it looked nice. Ooh. I pulled this over here, something like that. And so then we did another drop down here. And so for this one, I don't know why I made this one so big. I did not mean to do that. So for this one, what I did is I actually, right, because here I needed 0, 0 all the way through 59. But because I needed to do 0, 0, it actually has to be text, right? A number would always just show a single 0. So I wrote this cool little logic here. And I'm not going to over explain this, but I basically said, hey, loop through, use a sequence function to give me numbers 0 through 59, loop through, and for every one of those, add a row into the collection called col minutes and set the value to be whatever came out. So in the case of 0, but then I use the text function to format so it always shows 0, 0. And that's why if you look here on my numbers, they start at 0, 0 and they have all the way to 0, 9. But I had to do that as text, remember, because you can't tell a number to show 0, 5. It'll only just show the 5. It'll get rid of those leading zeros. So I had to do this as text. But once I did that, now that I have that cool little collection, that's a fun little trick. And probably a better way to do that, but that was just what I came up with off the top of my head instead of typing in a whole bunch of stuff. But that gives us all the minutes. Yay! And then last but not least, you can probably guess we did a drop down that just has the words AM and PM hard-coded like so. Okay, so, oh, not a curly, a square. There we go. So then now that you have that, what you need though is that is the text, but you need to turn that into an actual time using the time functions. So what you're going to do for that is you're going to use the TimeValue function. And so the TimeValue function says, all right, give me a bunch of timey text and I'll turn it into time. And so I said, all right, well, I want you to use drop down 4 dot selected. Oh, not selected text, selected value. So give me that one. Now you notice it's going to yell at us. And so we'll talk about that in just a second. I'm going to say, and a colon, and then the drop down 5 dot selected dot value. So that's the minutes, and then, and a space. And I don't think the space is actually required, but I always do it because it makes me feel better. And it's really just about what makes me feel better. So drop down 6 dot selected. Does anybody else think I want to fight Power Apps right now? I do. Dot selected dot value. And so then look at that. So that actually spits out 1 a.m., but it's the time 1 a.m. That's super important because we want to do time math. So we got to get it into a time object. Okay. So now that we've got all that working, I'll just copy all this, Control C, Control V. And so then what do we got down here? If we start doing this, right, then we can have like 8 a.m., 1 a.m. So, all right. So this works the way that I'd expect. So we'll do 9 to 4. We'll get off early today. 4:32 p.m. All right. Perfect. So time entry. So now that we've got time entry, now I want to do the math with you, right? And so the first thing we're going to do is we can just do a simple DateDiff, All right, actually, we could just straight up delete them or straight do them, but we're not going to. And so for this one, I'm just going to grab the text that's in here. Control A, Control C. So that's what I want the first one to be. And then I remember, so I couldn't, I'm going to do this. So that I was able to see it, prove it worked, but then now it's easy for us to, we'll just hit Shift Enter and make that go on a separate line. And so then now that should give us the difference. Now, remember, DateDiff works in days by default. So we do a comma and we'll say, hey, instead of days, I want you to give me a difference in minutes. So there's 452 minutes between those two. And if you'd like to get out an abacus, I need an abacus. Somebody send me an abacus. I want one in my hand. But if you went and did all that math, you'd find out there was 452. And now that we know that that's the total minutes, right, we can do our same crazy with structure, right? Remember the lesson we just did on the last screen where we did all of this? Oh, no, this one. We're just going to do a repeat of this, but it's just slightly different because now it's with hours. So I'd go over here and be like, all right, I would do something like this. I'd be like, hey, with hours between, or no, that's not hours, it's minutes, sorry. So this is minutes between. And so I would store that in there, like so. And then I go down here, I do a comma, I do another with, and then I would say minutes left over. And what's that going to be? That's going to be the minutes between, in the mod function, right? We're going to say mod that's minutes between and 60. And so then that should give us the remainder. And then once we've got that, in theory, oh my goodness, learn to type. Let's try, seriously people, typing is hard. So then what do we want here? Well, so for the hours, we want to take minutes between, and we want to subtract from that minutes left over. And then we want to divide that by 60. So that should give us the number of hours total. So then we'll do an ampersand and we'll say hours and then minutes is just the minutes left over. Minutes left over and minutes. Close that with 7 hours and 32 minutes. Would you believe that's the number between those two? I would. What? So remember, that's like super complicated, but it's not, especially if you watch the previous demo where we kind of did that. I did that previous one in slow motion, so we could kind of do that one in fast motion, but it's the same exact concept. It's just with a different operator, right? Because I want you guys to get used to using mod and with and things like that and applying it different ways. So another way to do that same thing. Okay. So that gets us the number of minutes. And you remember, you could also make these more complicated. If you wanted to have the number of days, minutes, an hour, or days, hours, and minutes between the different ones, or seconds, or whatever, right? You can take this concept and you can continue to blossom it out. It doesn't have to be these simple scenarios. These are the most common ones that I run into, but you can just take this and build on it and go deeper, and be able to actually, get the values out with these same things. Okay, so the last thing I want to do is we're going to get crazy now. Is remember over here, so we just did this one. We did this. The last thing we have not done is how in the world did I figure out these 15-minute increments? So let's just talk through this one instead of typing it all out again. So the first thing I did, right, it should look really similar to what we just did on the other screen. We calculated the total number of minutes, right? That's the same exact of the two different date diffs, right? I just didn't break them up as politely here. If we do, we'll kind of break them out like I did on the last screen. Might make it a little easier. So we said with total date diff. And so then if there's the time value of that one, and then the time value of that one. And then finally we did that all in minutes, right? So that was the first one we did here. Whoop. Control Z. I did not. Oh my goodness. Quit typing, Shane. Don't touch the keyboard. Okay. So that one gives me that total minutes. And then remember the minute difference, we just got the mod of the total minutes 60. So those are the same two functions you did on the other screen. And then I did some, a final width here. So let's kind of space this out. So I did a minute adjustment. And so I said, hey, if mod minute different 15 is greater than 7, so remember, because we're going to round up. So if they worked 8 minutes or more in the quarter hour, then we're going to round up. We would take 15 and we would subtract from that. So that's going to give us the number of minutes we need to add to help us get our rounding up. And if not, if it's less than 7, or if it's 7 or less, we need to just subtract those minutes because we're going to round down. So we would just subtract those 7 minutes. So if we had 37, it would become 30. If we had 38, it would become 45. Okay, because that's what we're after, is we want to get that exact number. Okay, and so then now we said our same thing: total minutes minus minutes difference divided by 60. That gave us our hours. And then for our minutes, we said take min difference and add to it whatever the min adjustment was. Remember, that was where we either had a -7 if it was 7, or we added 7 if it was 8. Right, that moving it up and down. So then that gave us that number. So that gave us a new number. And then we took that one and we subtracted 15, right? Or sorry, we divided by 15. So that's the number of quarter increments that are in there. And we multiplied that by 0.25. Now, earlier I realized that I kind of screwed this up. So what I think I want to do is I want to take these two numbers right here where I had an ampersand. I think I just want to do I want this meant to be a not a minus, a plus. So then that gives us the 8.5 hours. And what I wanted to see was if I go back to 536, which should round up to 9 whole hours. Yeah, I fixed my formula. Woo! Right, that's why I screwed up in the beginning. So I realize this is a pretty complicated one, but hopefully you guys can consume this. Or remember, you can just download the app from the curated library and just grab all this math and just fill in your own values. But this is the idea here. So because you can't round up or round down on a 7, like there's not a function to do that. So we kind of had to make our own logic to round up. But then this is a way for you guys to get, so if we go to more round numbers here, let's just go to 8 o'clock to 5:36. Right, so we know that from a payroll perspective should round down to 9.5 hours. But if I go to 8:38, that should round up to 9.75. 37 should be down. Perfect, right? And that's using what over here in the US, the government calls like the 7-minute time rule or something. I don't know. I am not a payroll expert. Do not take any payroll advice from me. But this is a common question I'm asked for is, if they worked 7 minutes, round down. If they worked 8 minutes, round up. That's what I showed you. So how you apply that in your business, I don't care. Whew. All right, folks. I hope you guys enjoyed that. That's some craziness, right? That was a lot of stuff. But hopefully it was good stuff, because this is the type of thing that, I want you guys to be able to come in here, grab these, apply these, because you're not going to just use some of these you're going to use directly, like that quarter hour stuff. But a lot of this is really just about understanding how these functions work so you can build out your solutions and continue to scale. If you have any questions, comments, ideas for future videos, I've got a couple of those from Twitter already, but leave them in the comments below. I always respond to all my comments. Sometimes I'm a little behind, always a little bit behind, let's be honest. But I do respond to all of those. Remember, if you want help building these type of apps, timesheets, that type of stuff for your business, we can do that at Power Apps 911. We also have full-scale training classes. We have ways to download this stuff. Go check out training.powerapps911.com for that. And I'm tired of talking. So with that, I'm going to say thanks and have a great day. Before you go, be sure to click on the subscribe button over here so that way you'll be notified when new videos come out. If you need any help or you want to work together, whether your problem is big or small, check us out at Power Apps 911. We do it all. I rhymed. Or if you're looking for more formal training offerings, we have those linked up here somewhere. So check them out. Thanks and have a great day.